So getting back to our get weather function, here let's first talk about what we want to do. So if I open my simulator here, so let's say we have this simulator. The first thing when we get our weather, we want to access our user defaults and get all the locations our user has saved inside the user defaults. Once we have all locations, for every location plus for a current location, because the current location of the device we are not saving in user defaults, we want to create a weather view, which is what we see on the screen. So we want to create this weather view for every location, and then we want to get the weather for that specific location and provide it to our weather view so it can display it. And we're going to put the stack of weather views. So imagine this view is just a card, and we're going to put all these weather views, 1 card, 2 card, 3 card, inside our scroll view. So to begin with, we are going to start getting our locations that are saved in our user defaults. So let's see where we're going to do that. Let me call the function and then we can write it. So load locations from user defaults. Okay, and let's before our location manager put a mark, I'm going to call this load users from user defaults, and the function will be private func load not users, actually it's locations, load locations. So say load locations from user defaults. Let's see that we actually didn't have any spelling mistakes in our function call and function writing, which we don't. The best way is just copy and paste it. So how we are going to load our locations is pretty simple. We have done this already. I'm going to check if let data is equals to and when we need access to our user defaults. So if I scroll here on top under my vars, say var, actually it can be let user defaults is equals to user defaults dot standard, and now we have access to our user defaults. So say let data is equals to user defaults dot value for key, and our key is gonna be locations. And when we say this is as data, so in case if we data, not date, in case if we have it, and else if we don't have it, I just want to say print no user data in user defaults. All right, and let's see. Once we have our user data, so what we want to do is actually to have some kind of array which is going to hold these user data, user locations, which we are going to get from our user defaults. So let's go on top actually with our variables, and we're going to create few arrays that will be global variables so we can use them. So the first one I'm going to call var all weather locations. Let's call actually all locations. And this is going to be holding a weather location object, and we're going to initialize it with an empty array. Then I want another variable to have all weather views, And this array is going to be an array of weather view. So remember, this is our cards. Each card is weather view. So we want an array. Now currently we have three weather views. You can see I can scroll through them. So we need an array to hold this, and this is going to be an empty array as well. And let's create another one, and we say this one is all weather data, and this is actually going to be used later on once we provide this information to our view here. So this I'm going to write now, but we're going to use it later on. So this will hold city temp data, and this is going to be equal to empty array as well. Let's go down where our location for user default function is, and here now we need to set our array. So we say all locations array is equals, and again we need to try and to decode it. So we say property list decoder, and we need to instantiate it, and we decode with data which throws, and we're going to decode an array of weather locations, and from data is going to be our data. So once we have this all locations, we can actually remember we are getting only the locations our user saved. Actually I need a self keyword here. So our current location is not in all locations array now. So that's why I want to insert my current location as well to our array, so I have everything in one place. So in order to set my current location, I want to create a weather location object from my current location. So I say let current location is equals to weather location object, and we're going to this doesn't autocomplete, so if I go to my weather location and just get this auto field back to my view here, and now we can say the city. For my current location we don't need a city name. Country, we don't need this. Country code, we don't need this. All I want to know is that current location is set to true. Remember, our weather location object has all these parameters, and the last one is the current location. So for our sake of our application, we just want to know that this current location that we have created is our current location. The rest is nil. We are passing empty strings because our information will be received from our API. We don't know what the city is or what the country is. Once our API provides this information based on our GPS coordinates, we are going to apply it here. So here I need to check first if I have actually received anything from our all locations. So I say if all locations dot count is greater than 0, and we have an else here, and also let's get rid of these empty lines. So if all locations count is greater than 0, so it means that we have received something from our user defaults. What I want to do is to add the current location to the beginning of array, because right now we have loaded our array with locations from our user defaults. But the first card in my weathers here, I want to always be my current location. And then we can go through the cities that we have saved it. That's why I want to insert my current location to be the first object in my array. So I say all locations dot insert element is going to be our current location. At index, I'm going to set it to be at index 0, which is the first object in my array. If, however, we didn't load anything from our locations, from our user defaults, I'm going to just put my location object, my current location, into my all locations array. So I say all locations dot insert current location at position 0. Actually, this if statement is kind of redundant because in both cases we are doing the same thing. So what I can do is take it out and get rid of this. So if we have something, we will insert our current location at index 0, or if we don't have anything, anyway, we will insert our current location at index 0, which is the first and the only object there. All right, and here in my else statement, in case, actually, if we didn't have anything, here we are checking for the count. If we didn't have anything in user defaults, our user defaults is actually nil here. And what I want to do is say all locations dot insert, not insert, append. We're just gonna append our current location. And I see I have a typo here, location. All right, so load locations from user defaults function is ready. So now every time we open our application, we can load everything, including our current location. So let's scroll up, and I'm going to say print. We have, and we're going to check how many objects we have in our all locations.count. Locations. So let's run our application. And this is asking for our permission to use our current location. I'm going to allow it. And let's just rerun our application because we didn't have our permission. And it says we have 0 locations. And again, I have a typo. So, oh, I'm calling it in wrong place actually. I need to call this get weather location because here we haven't called our location get user defaults from get locations from user default. So let's print it where we're supposed to print. And the get weather function, do we call this get weather function? All right, we call it here. And does this function being called? Callers, only ourselves. Yeah, so we are not calling the correct functions, which is actually required for our application to work. So let's go to our view did appear, view did load, view did appear, and in my view did appear, I want to call my location authentication check. So this way we are going to check if our user has the permission to use our authentication, our location, and then we are going to go through our application. So now it says we have 7 locations, and this is also including our current location because we have inserted that. Okay, so everything works, and the next thing we're going to create this application weather views, which is our cards, and we're going to insert them in an array so we can display them.